Hello, dear friends, and welcome to our special edition of the ZeitRäume podcast dedicated to the ZeitRäume Festival. And today I have a special guest. I'm here at the Music Academy in the cafeteria. The morning is very nice. So, hello, Marcus. Could you please introduce yourself for our listeners?
Yes, hello, everybody listening. Thanks for inviting me to this talk. My name is Marcus Weiss. I'm a musician, play the saxophone, doing many other things, especially in contemporary music. I'm also a professor at the Musik Hochschule Basel in saxophone and as well curating, let's say, or being a tutor in the contemporary music master of performers. And so this year's project Sonic Spaces Klebeck was part of my work, let's say, as a professor here at the Hochschule, and at the same time as maybe an old friend member of ZeitRäume. So I was thinking about having many of our fantastic students inside some buildings in Klebeck, in a pharmaceutical old industry halls, and my idea was to not to do one concert but to have a kind of a flow show for the audience a little bit. The idea or the dream would have been a symposium where people have enough time between concerts to drink a glass of wine and sit around, but of course, first of all, it already was 6 hours. The pauses were long enough, I think. There was some food, but it would have been much longer. And in the middle of a city and of a festival, it's difficult to have this calm and this slowness. And of course, in a Protestant city, you don't have people that know how to sit down and drink, but they stand and they want to hear more and something else. And so it was kind of a middle thing. Yeah.
For the purpose of hearing or listening to more music, or just because they are not used to this kind of slow vibes and just enjoying the ambience and sonority that is happening around?
Yeah, I mean, my idea, that there are a couple of ideas behind it. First of all, and of course, in the last 20, 30 years, new music has exploded a little. There is a real scene, there are festivals, there are ensembles. I remember when I started in the 80s, late 70s, 80s, there was the IGNM Basel with 6 concerts in the year, and that was it. There was nothing else. There was maybe once in a while a concert. Then there was Paul Sacher doing his orchestra things, and that was in the 90s, I think, already. So there was not much, and now there is a lot happening already. So it has changed a lot, but still, new music as kind of the difficult to play, difficult to hear music. Musicians in black shirts and black pants, a kind of seriousness of it. I wanted to break that a little. That has, of course, already been broken by many people in the past, in the last 20 years. Not only new forms of performing, but also new behavior of musicians in front of the audience. Not this kind of very serious and distant thing, but something more rock and roll, let's say. And so that was one idea. And then the presentation form comes from another idea, which is a little bit, a historic idea. Like most people today, they still think new music is super complicated, arrogant, difficult, virtuoso, not nice sounding instrumental music. And that, of course, has changed a lot in the course of the last 20 years. The new generation, there is one new generation of composers that also had to find their own niche, their own kind of paradigm. So in the last 15 years, in the German, American, English, maybe also a bit French, and Germany is not only German but is very international in this field of new music. Something like the new discipline, as Jenny Walsh puts it, or new conceptual music, new conceptualism, brought much into this kind of stiff, purely instrumental new music of the 60s, 70s, 80s, even 90s. And it's due to the presence and to the availability, easy availability of multimedia. So everybody has a computer, everybody has Macs, everybody has a full studio in his laptop computer, everybody has 1, 2, 3, 4 little cameras, so a full, let's say, visual production studio as well. Everything is at hand, and that has changed a lot. But not only this, also there are many other things to say about why these young composers they couldn't go on after Ferneyhough in the way of writing music like Ferneyhough. They couldn't somehow go on after Lachenmann in the way of writing like Lachenmann, because these teachers, they put something somehow authentic, personal, and extremely established, extremely full and rich. It's like writing fugues after Bach. It's just, you can do it, but I asked myself why, really. I mean, of course there have been many, you have Russian composers doing it very well, but it's still the same. The fugue, somehow there was a lot before Bach, and then there was Bach. And so there had to be in the way of how to write, how to perceive music, a change. And these younger composers, they also have this wish to be artists of today, to be not only musicians that know counterpoint and complex theories of sounds and microtones, but they are artists in or with sound. So this opening of the field, I think, is fantastic, but it's a putting into question of what a musician is today, because just to play the flute or the cello very well is not all of what a musician shall do and present today. There is if he or she thinks of herself as an artist and not only as an instrumentalist, because for me an instrumentalist or even a musician is a craftswoman, and basta. And some have an artistic fiber. Of course, to play a Brahms sonata well, you have to be a little bit more than just a craftsman. But then somehow, if you don't ask yourself about why and what you are doing, for me, this is not an artistic side. You're just a very good Kunsthandwerker. There's a craftsman and there's an art craftsman in German that plays this Brahms or this Loyer or whatever.
I was just thinking about this question yesterday, and yes, so what is it for us to play well on your instrument? Is it only your skill? Or still, we play such a beautiful music sometimes. Does it affect our soul in a way if we are perceiving this? It's a gift in a way. We can't be just like very skillful people.
No, of course. I mean, I think even a craftsman, to put it in another way, somebody that is working with wood, he doesn't just apply laws that he learned, but there is the art, the soul, the expression, the authenticity, whatever to it, the choosing the right material, the forms and so forth. So there is more to craftsmanship. I think we have to say that craftsmanship is something incredibly high. It comes from the Middle Ages, and the way of teaching instruments today is still medieval. There is a Meister and there are the students. It hasn't changed at all. It's really the same. And students come to a Hochschule because there is a Meister, and the Meister is the Meister. And of course, Meisters of today, they don't beat their students anymore. They're not allowed to beat the students or to do whatever.
Thank God.
Yeah. But the relationship is still the same. So, and I think as a musician, of course, somebody that perfectly plays Scarlatti, and lives for and with and through Scarlatti, sure, I would say this is an artist somehow, bringing his life into that. But somehow we all know that today you can learn all these things on a very high level. People play very well something. They learn. Of course they need gifts, but I wouldn't go to say that they are artists. Or you could say everybody is an artist. That's another story. Then the life contextuality of being a flute player, playing only French Baroque, but only between 17 then and 17 then, that is also an artistic choice. But in arts and in expression, generally in music, let's say, I still see that somebody that doesn't in any way relate to what happens today, for me, is not an artist. That's my very personal idea. I mean, you have to relate to that. If you just work, do your competitions, get your job in the orchestra, or get your agent and play around the world, always the same pieces, earn your good money, and it's a little bit, it's nice, of course, it can be nice, but artistically for me this is uninteresting, and usually I say it's a little bit nostalgie program, you know, we live in a mean world, so let's do Renaissance music because it's so beautiful. I think the world was probably as mean as today in the Renaissance times because they had other problems, but it's always nice to not relate to now and here. But then...
Why is it nice?
I mean, nice, it's not nice, of course, but
it's not nice, but nice in...
I don't think it's nice, but I imagine somebody that doesn't want to face these things, that can play, you know, Bach very nicely, hopping from one church to the other, being in Bach, being with Bach.
So it's a way to escape reality in a way.
Yeah, I mean, Nostalgie program is an escape program somehow. You know, I don't want to offend anybody who is doing that because I would love to do it also. Probably if I wouldn't have chosen the saxophone, I might be in the Nostalgie program as well.
You can still play Glazunov concert.
Yeah, that's really not enough, and that's right in the middle. It's kind of yeah, but yeah. So that was a reason to this whole change. That is, now we come back to that idea. What is a composer today? What does a composer have to do, want to do? That was or even a performer as well. That was the reason why I made this program, because I wanted to show this breaking up of possibilities, of like a pure instrumentalist today. Our students of the Master of Contemporary Music here, they don't want to play pure instrumental music. They want to do things with objects, with visuals, with electronics, with electrics, with robotics, with I don't know what. They really want that. For example, my idea was to start with a pure instrumental concert, a pure new music concert, an ensemble concert, conducted, which makes it even more old style. The first piece by Marc-André was kind of historically, from the instrumentation, was a little bit connected to the new music formation, classic new music formation, going back to Pierrot Lunaire, which is flute, clarinet, strings, piano. And there was a percussion, but that came in very quickly. Already Stravinsky used it in the Histoire du Soldat. But that's more the reduction of the classic orchestra. Winds, strings, woodwind, string, and percussion. The second piece was a new piece, a commission by Japanese composer Yuko Wabara, who is a very gifted young woman from Japan. And with her we already choose a little bit more modern, let's say late 20th century formation, which still had piano and strings, but which had also a saxophone and brass and an electric guitar. So already the sound of these pure instrumental musics were reflecting a little bit, for myself, in curating the differences of ensembles developing in the 20th century. But I didn't want to have any electronics or anything of that in there. That was the first format. The second format were solo pieces, because our students, they all do solo performances, and some of them really incredibly well. And so I thought really of splitting up the audience into 4 groups. and having 4 soloists so that the audience could really go very close and really encounter this physical presence also of a player. And I was always thinking of, somebody playing Xenakis, Fernihau, Lachenmann, some real high standard, good. And I didn't want to tell them what to play. And they all choose something that is not only instrumental, which is very funny. Of course, the electric guitar piece, he chose a very large Bilone electric guitar piece that I like a lot, and I was happy to have that in the program. The Julia Smeu, the violinist, who is a Romanian classic violinist studying free improvisation here, so she is really also putting herself into question very much with that choice. I heard her a year ago or more, 2 years ago, with a very nice improvisation where she improvised with her own amplification. So it was not electronics, but she was amplified, and she improvised with the amplification, with the fact of feedbacks and things. And I thought that's great, and it was very existential. And she played a huge thing, her Masterarbeit, which was with visuals, 2 beamers, with movement, with electronics, with violin, amplified violin, and so forth. So she made a kind of a real performance with all the extensions. The third was Yi Zhu, who's a fantastic young Chinese cello player. I thought she could just play a cello piece and it would be enough. No, she chose a piece with electronics, live electronics, and prepared electronics, and an object, a live object that already also was put under under action by sounds added. So it was a cello piece with live electronics and electronics. And the fourth was a student of mine, a saxophone player, Salvatore Castellano, who discovered a year ago an incredible phenomenon. Playing the soprano saxophone on a timpani, he could produce the most incredible multiphonics and sounds. So he started to research that. So really do a research on zones on the timpani, on what sounds you get, on scales. And he finally did an improvisation with showing these sounds. Also his saxophone was played through the extension of the timpani. It was neither a saxophone nor a timpani piece, because it mostly sounds like electronic music with pure sounds. So these were the 4 solo pieces. Already there, the reflection of what solo instrumental music is today is very much implemented. The third format was to have the audience split it in 2, and to have 2 conceptual pieces. And it also came out nicely. We didn't know what happened in the beginning, but then somehow there was a choice of Dakota Wayne, a young composer of Johannes Kreidel's class, who was up to doing something really crazy with meat and dirt and kind of existential, more an installation type. So he did a big piece. He had 4 performers, fantastic instrumentalists, a double bass player, a saxophone player, a percussionist, and another saxophone player. But they didn't even play their instrument. They touched it. One was there was a drum, there was one saxophone, but the rest was not there. So they were instrumentalists performing in the dirt with special underwear, and performing really twice 20 minutes with being very dirty and everything in the end. So it was a kind of an art performance. Could have been also a pure artistic performance, but it was music because a composer did it, and of course sound was important. But it super instrumentalist. Also the other conceptual piece were 2 duos, one piece by Jesse Marino and one piece developed by the 2 players, Maria Munoz and Phoebe Bognar, which are a fantastic violinist and a fantastic Spanish violinist and a fantastic Australian flute player. But there was no flute and no violin in the whole performance. So that was already like after the solo piece, the next step of instrumental music becoming some part of contemporary music, and the multimedia performance installative part much more important. And then the last, after another pause and another beer, there was the last set, which was a set with rock, jazz, electronic inspired new music. So it was instrumental new music, but it was it was part. I mean, the composers both have a strong connection to. They are both composers writing super new music, complex new music, but also in these pieces they did both reflect their relationship with rock and jazz. And it's funnily, and that's more private, one piece by Bernard Lang was for voice, saxophone, piano, percussion, is a piece that I did first perform 20 years ago or 15 years ago with my trio canto, and a singer, Jenny Renate Wicke, who died in the meantime. But it was a piece called Songbook, and in this concert we choose one slow piece from the songbook, Ophelia's Song, which is with keyboard, using subwoofers, so there's a lot of bass, and some drums, saxophone, and the voice. So for me it also reflects that we, Trio a Canto, we are now 30 years in the new music business, and I see ourselves as a chamber music ensemble. We completely work like a string quartet, but we are saxophone, piano, percussion. And the other piece was Fleisch by Enno Poppe, piece that is maybe 5 years old, which was written for Nickel, Ensemble Nickel, which is based on our ensemble, but it's one generation younger. It has an electric guitar, so it's a quartet, saxophone, piano, percussion, electric guitar, and it's really a new kind of ensemble. It's not so much a chamber ensemble, but it's more like a new music band, because they also, of course, they work like anybody who has to work to play complex pieces. They work very thoroughly, and they're fantastic. They are probably the most successful chamber music ensemble that is not a string quartet. So this was the final concert in a club, which was a real club. And after that, and that was the fifth part, we had the idea that the audience just dances into the night. So there was Mikhail Shafirovsky of the electronic department, let's say. He was mixing the last piece and then other things into the night. But of course the audience was not, there were not hundreds of people, and it started at 6 and this was around 11:30 maybe. So the audience was kind of tired.
I was there in that performance, in that evening in the club, and I had an impression that people were enjoying this evening, and they could drink a beer and go outside and smoke and chat with each other, and it was kind of, it was a great idea actually, and reflect on the performances that they heard before.
No, that was the idea. I was too tired, because after this concert I had to run away for the next project, so that's a little bit the situation. But the idea for me went quite well with the whole, it went well. The pizza was very good, and sometimes to tell people, now you have to go here, now you have to go there, that's, it's difficult, but it had to be done, otherwise it wouldn't have worked, But I'm quite happy. I'm quite happy with the idea. As I told you, I would have, if there was time, if there was more money, we would have also crafted the pauses much more and just made it start maybe Yeah, start at 6, start at 5, and go through midnight with some talks in the pauses, entertainment, food, drinks, some wine degustation. I don't know, like just to break up the kind of austerity of new music concerts, which I think it was not austere, which is already because the location is really was really quite cool, I think.
Yes, that was my next question actually. How to prepare the audience to perceiving this kind of music in the new perspective, new reality. Yeah, so that's the challenging thing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to explain anything. So the location, the way things are decorated, should give that. I think the first ensemble concert, you just have to sit there and be quiet, and the door has to be closed, and no kids should be in the audience. I think that's just part of this music. This music wants to be heard in a quietness that is in a kind of a holy, absolute. As it's absolute music, it needs this kind of absolute space. And I think the difference of playing this in a church or in a hall or is not even so big, because the condition of the audience is just you sit and you listen. And I think this I don't even want to change. I like that. I'm into a Festival Rümlingen as well since 30 years, where since 20 years we develop new formats, making concerts in the river, in the train, on the mountain, in the night, in the forest, in the morning, whatever is possible. We had everything. And I'm always the person who likes sound in a closed space, which certain pieces, they just need that. You cannot play Beethoven in the field. It doesn't make sense. You don't hear it. You need to be in a closed space. It can be a church, it can be a grot, it can be wherever, but no movement, no rumor, that's it. The solos, I think, a solo piece like this with electronics is more like a presentation in an art space, I see it, where you also respect the artwork, you don't touch it, you don't take it with you. I think it has to be understood by itself, and I think these spaces, they all worked quite well. You would understand it. Nothing has to be explained. People understand how it works. And I don't know if it is also about listening, so about being audience.
Listening is like a part of curating experience actually. Maybe curators, they should assume how the audience will be listening to the performance. That's a very important aspect of the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean the difference, listening, if you are quiet, you sit or lie or stand during a performance, that's a difference, let's say. But the listening itself, if the visual aspect is not very strong, is the same, I would say. It's just that's the condition of music. Then the next step would be you walk around or you're outside, and that's exactly walking around in a space with a big sound. I think that can be interesting. But it's already less, because music for me is something that works with closed eyes. It is something that is really inside. Listening is something inside. Whereas seeing, maybe even touching, walking, art is something much more related to normal life, We do things, and now an artist shows us we have to do it differently, or we can reflect about it. But music itself, in general, is abstract. It doesn't exist in the real world. It's like another world. It's touching another world, maybe an inner world, maybe a rock and roll, or a spiritual or whatever abstract world. But it's something that for me is connected to closed eyes. Of course, the part of seeing a nice hall, seeing a beautiful person playing, seeing a beautiful instrument and elegant movements, that can add something. But it has nothing to do with what you hear directly.
But what about this movement towards more performative arts in the contemporary music scene?
Yeah, of course. That then is another. That is the plus that I would say. Like, I mean, every kind of movement is connected to the music. How a singing quartet or a string quartet or a brass quintet, how they move is already part, a little bit of the music, but not a big one, I would say. But then, of course, if movement becomes important, or if sound Bewegung, how do you sound movement, let's say, becomes important, then. But I mean, that's what I say. For myself, the listening situation for pure music is more or less always the same. By not putting somebody 2 meters higher, already you change something in the social relationship between audience and player. That can give something, bring you closer to the artist. Being in a very small room, having somebody like 1 meter from you play Bach changes the Bach of being in a big church and hearing. That's of course is a change and can be part of curating music. Orchestra standing, as we know today, it changes something. But in the end, it doesn't change. It shouldn't change the music so much. It should give something to the music. Whereas, of course, performance, running around, movement, but then these are other levels that are not purely, I would say, musical, but they are corporal, performative, dance, whatever, other signs, other meanings, let's say. So the third part, I mean, already in the solo pieces there were differences of not just playing, but kind of acting. With Salvatore, with his different instrument, with Julia, of being really a performer of her piece. Bilone, the electric guitar piece, I think he did just play the electric guitar. It was the theater of playing an electric guitar. Every instrument has a theater, as we know, and that you can play out. The flute. This kind of little bit arrogant gesture of holding a flute. You can play with it, or you can try to be cool with it. I don't know. Yeah.
I'm just thinking now that it's a bit of a cliche, no?
Yeah,
playing
yes.
an instrument.
Yeah, all the instruments have this. The oboe with the air problem, the saxophone with this, I don't know, this pipe thing, smoking a pipe. I mean, this is the theater of instrumental playing. It is a body language that we need to produce the sounds, and I think you can bring it out or you can make it forget. For me, it's better like that. I think most classic, probably teacher pedagogy goes to that you make it forget, and you serve the piece, you serve the composer, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I mean, but you can also do the opposite and have, whatever do with your body, with your clothes, with your movements. I'm very conservative what that belongs. I'm interested in sound mostly. All the pluses can be interesting, but I'm incredibly surprised how composers can make incredible sounds without any rubbish, without using special objects or so. But of course, and also electronics, I love it. I like it a lot when it's well made, when it's it can be different things. It can be an extension of the live, it can be an environment, it can be the main part, whatever. But I need a connection to physical bodies, to physical presence of performers. Otherwise, the pure electronic music, I personally have never been attracted. Everything is possible, but when you see an instrumentalist play super fast and it's precise and the gesture works and the piece is virtuoso, you feel something that goes beyond the normal. You feel the bodily, not training, also training, but the possibilities, and you feel this tension, this incredible achievement. But when a computer plays the same, even twice as fast, I don't feel anything. I just feel, I just take a note. Okay, yeah. So, but I mean, I think as a instrumental player, I cannot change that.
Thank you very much, Marcus. It was a very enlightening conversation for me, and I hope for our listeners as well. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.